and welcome to the Transatlantic Connection Show, bringing you artisan music and musicians, the vagabonds and adventurers, building with the raw ingredients of folk music from both sides of the Atlantic. I am Chris the Bish Lydon, and this week, our vagabond is award-winning singer-songwriter Rob McHale, joining us from his home in North Carolina, USA. Rob will be sharing his new song, Ford Coupe. On the scene this week, I talk a bit about the Transatlantic Connection movement we are building, and join our house band sharing what we think of as a great example of music being made in this sort of genre, our song, Ballad of Dwayne and Billy Marie. This is the Transatlantic Connection Show. Greetings, I am Chris the Bish Lydon. Thanks for joining us. What is this show all about? Well, me and my musical compadres, who I'll tell you about in a moment, are interested in the extraordinary stories of ordinary folk told through music. We've been treading the line between multiple musical genres for years now, with feet in many different camps. And here's the transatlantic bit, and influences from both sides of the North Atlantic. Folk, blues, jazz, rock, country, Americana, all sorts, all mixed together, poking out of the melting pot at different points and at different ferocities. Here in the UK, certainly, we feel we need to build and strengthen the community around this sort of music. Authentic, handcrafted, artisan music made with integrity, guts and honesty. Nearly always acoustic music, the odd electric instrument for practicality's sake, and music shared with an audience who love to hear interesting stories well told. The Transatlantic Connection is a movement, and we want you to be part of it. This show will be showcasing some of the artists we meet along the way who are travelling the same road, making moonshine music out of the raw ingredients of folk from both sides of the pond, as well as news, views and updates from those involved in the industry, promoters, venues, journalists, artist managers. There are a few little segments to the show each episode, presented or our viewers are guided through by one of the house band, that is me, and my musical compadres that make up the band The Long Road. So these are Steve Bonham, the Vagabond philosopher. Me and Steve have been making music together for 20 years now. Steve's a guitarist, chief songwriter for the band, and me and him have co-composed many songs over the years. Kev Moore, the big man, a musician of international standing, having toured and recorded with some of the big names in rock and pop music over the last 40 years. Kev plays bass, drums, guitar, does vocals, just about anything really, and also gets his hand dirty in the songwriting process too. And then there's me. I'm Chris the Bish Lydon, quite a different pathway musically to Steve and Kev, in as much as I studied music at university, but I think this often powers some of the sort of unique attributes of the music that The Long Road makes. The bridled and the unbridled, the known and the unknown, those magical confluences of inspiration. I play piano and tuba, and I've experienced working in classical, jazz, folk, musical spheres. So the three of us are The Long Road, and we are the house band for the Transatlantic Connection Show. So what will you experience in the show? Each episode there will be Vagabonds and Scoundrels. This is where we meet fellow artists and chat about their path, what moves them, what inspires them, and we'll get to hear some live music from them each week. The Scene. Here we'll chat with people in the music industry about what's happening now, what's going to happen in the future, and how people can be part of it. And there'll be a house band segment. Some episodes this will be one of the three of us giving an insight into the road we've travelled to get where we are, or some of the projects we've got coming up, or some of the history of the Transatlantic Connection style music we want to share. All this is right now created at home via the internet, born in the throes of lockdown here in the UK and around the world. Interviews with artists are done with online video conferencing for now, but hopefully in the future one day we can actually be in the same room as these people. Anyway, on this, our inaugural show, this week we are delighted to have as our very first guest Rob McHale, an award-winning singer-songwriter from North Carolina, USA, who's been a friend of ours for several years now, and we're thrilled to be able to spread the word a bit more about him and his great storytelling songwriting. I'm also going to talk a little bit more about the Transatlantic Connection idea, about what we hope to achieve with this growing movement in the coming months and years. And from the house band this week, The Long Road's biggest single of 2020, from our EP released back in April, the song The Ballad of Dwayne and Billy Marie, an example of the sort of music that fits in the box that we've made for it, rather than a preconceived genre box. More on that later on. If you like what you see here and you'd like to support us so we can continue making more of the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. patreon.com/thevagabondway. From just £1 a month, you can help us keep making connections. First up, we have our vagabond this week, Rob McHale, in conversation with Steve Bonham. Over to Steve.
First met Rob McHale about 5 years ago. He was over in England looking for a PA in Derbyshire, and I was glad to oblige. And we soon became good friends. And when he comes over to England, I put him up, does his gigs, and he's kindly helped organise 3 or 4 now tours that I've done around North Carolina with him. I really like his craftsmanship and the way he goes about writing songs, and his ability to pick a topic and build a fascinating, deep and very thoughtful story about it. He's award-winning. His last album, Prophets on the Boulevard, did extremely well. Back over there in America, he's one of the ones that people pay attention to. I was really pleased to catch up with him the other day during this sort of lockdown period, and we swapped a few notes.
Hey, hello Rob, how are you doing?
Hi Steve, great to see you, so to speak.
How are you doing over in North Carolina?
Doing very well. We had an earthquake this morning at 8 o'clock, and it was just north of here, about 55 miles. And
All
they
right.
say they felt it. It was 5.1 on the Richter scale, and they felt it as far as Alabama. And
Wow.
it was 8 a.m. when it happened, and I had a actual gig last night, so I was still in bed at 8, and it felt like somebody jumped in bed with me, and it woke me up, and I looked to see who it was, and I didn't see anyone.
You must be the first person in history to mistake a woman for an earthquake.
I should be careful about what I say about
It leads to all sorts of problems.
that. But yeah, doing great here, and just waiting for the world to get back to normal. I know we're all looking forward to that.
What have you been working on during this sort of strange period of time?
Well, I've been writing a little bit. I have a new song that I've crafted about one of the steepest railroad grades. It was actually the steepest railroad grade
Right.
in the United States, and it's just about 2 hours from here. It's
Okay.
called the Saluda grade. And putting together a new record that should go to manufacturing tomorrow, and I hope to have that very shortly. And that's called 40 Ford Coupe. So just getting the details with the artist Mike Emery painting the cover, and Lynn Ross are doing the layout, getting everything together.
And I know you're going to play that song for us later, but
Yes.
tell us a bit more about it.
A lot of times when I write, I'm just practicing. I don't normally sit down with a theme to write a song. I don't say, well, I'm going to write a song about Tom Dooley. I just have a thought about Tom Dooley or a 40 Ford Coupe, and I go on with it. And that seems to work very well for me, because I must be feeling the spirit of that song in a way, in order to come up with an attachment to it. But I was downstairs in my practice room down there, and over on the wall, I have a print. It's probably 2 by 3 feet, and it has Junior Johnson in it, and Willie Clay Call, and the artist, and Millard Ashley, and they're doing a deal. It's called The Payoff, I believe, and the artist Mel Steele. But I was just practicing down there, and I don't know, for some reason I glanced over at that wall, and I came up with this. I've got a 40 Ford Coupe running all night, and I just knocked the song out fairly quickly. I just had to burn in the licks. It has some fairly aggressive bluegrass type licks in it. So yeah, that's a great example of how I might write one just by accident.
It's had a bit of a life its own soon. I know that a few distilleries are sort of thinking that's very interesting. You were going to get involved with some of the old moonshine drivers as well, weren't you, at one time?
Well, there's a festival up in Mount Airy where you have been. You and I have been together. There's a festival there last year. A gentleman by the name of Bill Blair put on the first annual Moonshine Racers Reunion Festival. And it was just a tremendous success. They closed off all the streets downtown, and they had retired NASCAR and retired moonshine runners, and a lot of vintage cars like the 40 Ford Coupe and Ford Fairlane and many others. parked out there for people to see.
I think we should hear that song, so we'll just take a short break and tune in to you play that song.
That sounds great. I got a 40 Ford Coupe running all night, taking the back road straight outside, 99 gallons coming from a creekside stew. Flathead 8 on the floor, coming down the mountain, bringing some more. 99 gallons coming from my daddy's still. The law says to catch me, but I don't think they ever will. I don't think they ever will.
So that song, well, the great thing about your songwriting, Rob, that I've always known and loved, it's a narrative. It's writing the stories of the people around you and the world around you, by and large. How did you come to start writing like that? What drove you into this particular? Who inspired you? What got you going on that way of writing songs?
I think I just stumbled into it. It just one thing that I did, Steve, I kind of stopped listening to music, especially commercial music, for a period of time. And I did that intentionally just to try to refocus myself on my music and make sure I didn't have anything that was influencing me and that might cause me to perhaps develop a style that someone else already had. So I was purposely trying to identify my own style and find whatever it was and burn it in. So I just walk through life, and if I think there's something that I want to say that is important to the world, that something that they might get some value, maybe somebody will just be touched by one line in a song that they might be able to relate to, that might help them out or make them think about something, then it makes it tremendously worthwhile to be able to reach people that way.
How did you start? What sort of, where was the first steps you took to picking up the guitar? And
well, I was a little I felt like I was a little bit too diversified. Um, Years ago, I was doing too many things.
Yeah.
I played the electric guitar and I played the electric bass and played the acoustic guitar and spreading across many genres.
Right.
So I knew that I had to focus and take a path. And
Yeah.
that's where the path that I'm on is the one that made the most sense. That's just me. And
Yeah.
I chose that path, and I didn't know where. I had no idea where it would take me. I didn't
Yeah.
particularly have any aspirations, but it's been a wonderful experience to go out and meet people all around the world. You know, people like you, another great songwriter, and then all of the other places that's taken me, and I know you as well. So.
Yeah. And I think our last album, Prophets on the Boulevard, that's done really well, hasn't it? So what inspired that? What drove that? What made that, I believe, an
Well,
award-winning album?
Oh, the International Music and Entertainment Association. Yes, they just awarded that in January as Folk Album of the Year. Really, quite an honor and privilege. I'm very humbled that they would select that album for that. Well, doing the album was a lot of fun because it does cover a little bit of ground, and I have some social issues on there. The title track is really a song about humanity. It's a great message. And I kind of went across into some other issues like John Brown's effect on the world, the impact of mainly his death on the world at the time was huge and considered to be one of the catalysts for the Civil War here in
Yeah.
America.
There's a huge honouring of history in your songs. Is that deliberate, or where's that come from? I mean, your stories are so written into the everyday history of America. It is the
Well,
ordinary folk who get the mention on the whole.
I think a lot of those topics and people were heroes of mine, along the years. And I try to keep up with history. So people like Custer and
Yeah,
Jesse James,
yeah,
Tom Dooley, and so forth. Even a little bit of Irish history in there. The Castlebar races, one of their
yeah.
greatest victories in their history. It's just fascinating to me to be able to go back in time and evaluate something, and a lot of it relates to us today.
So thinking a bit more about the idea of the Transatlantic Connection, what is it? As I said earlier, the main things are the extraordinary stories of ordinary folk told through artisan music and songs, handcrafted, made with authenticity and guts, often going back to the raw ingredients of folk music from both sides of the North Atlantic, perhaps existing in their own space, defying the oversimplified genre labels that have forever plagued the music industry, and perhaps always will. There are so many different influences in the sort of music we're talking about here, from the UK folk side, English folk, Scottish, Irish, Welsh folk music, American born or influenced music, jazz, blues, bluegrass, country, Americana itself. I mean, okay, what's that? It's a topic in itself. Rock, so many different components. Very many of these influences have only been around in the last 100 years or so. For us, it's often about the fusing of influences in unexpected ways that brings things to life. What might be an ostensibly straightforward guitar folk song, but give it a subtly blues vocal and it's already shifted focus a little. A fairly straightforward heavy rock ballad with some nifty slide guitar and a bit of country piano, and again, you've got something different. So often the lyrics are vital to making the music of this movement fizz. They've got to be telling a story, something of depth, of substance, that, speaks to people today. Even though it might be a tale from hundreds of years ago, or it might be a song born in the last few weeks about very current affairs, it still has to speak to people. And the people are central to this. Songwriters are the conduits for their communities to speak out, be heard, be remembered. And there are people that just soak up a community and are able to put those things into words, those stories, into song, and make those stories sing. That's what the Transatlantic Connection is about. People being able to bring each other together as storytellers and audience, part of the story and receiving the story. So we want this show to be a home for people to find the music they like, that speaks to them, that makes connections, made by artists they like, artists that are able to represent their voices, present the stories of common folk. Ultimately, we want the community to grow online even more. There's already lots of people doing great things in this department. Hopefully some of whom will be able to get on the show to talk about their work. But once things settle down post-COVID-19 in whatever slowly evolving shape that is, we want to be able to bring artists and audiences back together in live music venues that champion not only the performance of this sort of music, but the creation of it, enabling artists to find their voice, hone their craft, bring their authentic stories to the forefront of the live music industry once again, with the communities that they serve. I mean, if you've stuck around until this point of the show, it probably means you're at least a little bit interested, perhaps a lot interested. So maybe join us in spreading the word. We're building something here, and we need you to help us make it bigger and better. So this week we're going to feature one of the Long Road songs from 2020, which we think is a great example of the sort of Transatlantic Connection music. Influences from all sorts of corners in this one. This song is called The Ballad of Duane and Billy Marie. This song was written by Steve Bonham and Kev Moore. If you like this one, you might like to check out the other songs from The Long Road. Just search Steve Bonham and The Long Road on Spotify and Apple Music, you will find us. And in fact, we actually have a brand new single coming out on Friday the 4th of September 2020. It's called On a Bridge Across the River, and itself actually another great example, we think, of the Transatlantic Connection. This song actually being conceived on a bridge across the Cumberland River in Nashville, Tennessee. So do check that out as well. For now, please enjoy Ballad of Duane and Billy Marie from Steve Bonham and The Long Road.
Side by side like lovers, counting all the stars, and the old black bear, and the creaking pine, one coyote sang. We were strumming our guitars. Carved upon the white oak that had fallen to the floor, where the embers there still linger. Duane had written about his love. He left no mark, but only this. So we gathered yarn to spin and watched the moon arising through the branches high above. And the old black bear and the creaking pine, what coyote sang. We were strumming our guitars. How did they come here? Were they rambling just like us? Or had they run from heaven's door, or from the gates of hell? My sweet friend simply said, a voice that's in the wilderness summoned them to keep a heart-rich broken spell. on his breath. 'Cause the world's getting older here. She never said goodbye.
That's it for this episode of the Transatlantic Connection Show. Thank you for watching wherever in the world you are. Remember, please subscribe to the channel, like this video if you liked it, and share it with a pal who you think might like it too. The next episode will be out on Tuesday, the 15th of September 2020. If you enjoyed the show, you might enjoy it's called The Vagabond Way podcast, and is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Just search for The Vagabond Way podcast and you will find us. And don't forget, we're on Patreon at patreon.com/thevagabondway. Big thank you to our patrons and a special shout out to Orla Flynn, James Lydon, Yvette Lydon and Trish Taylor. Thank you. Patreon is a great platform that makes it super easy for anyone, i.e. you, out there, to support content on a monthly basis. It gives you direct access to the people creating the stuff you love, us, integral part in shaping the direction of the things that we make. So become a Vagabonder, that's our name for our supporters on Patreon, and help us make live performances, books and short stories, weekly podcasts, our new things that we're cooking up. As a Vagabonder, you can get the recordings and books we make for free, receive exclusive Patreon-only merchandise in the post, get regular behind-the-scenes updates from us, including access to exclusive live stream performances and Q&As, and lots more. Something different, something that entertains, and something that inspires others. So, join us on the journey and release the vagabond within. Patreon.com/thevagabondway. So, until next time, keep making those transatlantic connections. Bye for now.